Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast, ripping up everything off that. Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. We are back with another fantastic episode for you guys. We kind of took a week off. That's my fault, but had some things going on personally. But we're back now, getting ready for the 2025 season. Of course, Coach Tyler's with us today. Coach Tyler, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, guys? Yeah, it was honestly nice to have a little bit of a week break, jumping back into it, though. We're excited for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have a fantastic guest on today's show, guys. Bob Lung. What is going on, my friend? How are you? You got me with the pointing.
I'm like, that's me, I think. No, good to be here, guys. Thanks for having me. Obviously, always love to hear an FF man bun intro in front of somebody's thing like that. He does our Prop It Like It's Hot. Man's amazing. Love him to death. So love to hear that.
Absolutely. I love his intros. I have like different versions of it. And it's great just to listen to it in general. So yeah, but it's a lot of fun. So Bob, before we get started, those who may be listening to us but not know, there's something really special going on later in August. We're the first or second week of August, right? When the Hall of Fame game is approaching us and all that. The week after, yes, thank you. Fantasy Football Expo. I know this is your baby child here. This is something you run every year. Probably one of the best events in there. If you want to just kind of talk about it real quick, I'm going to give you the floor.
No, thank you. So if you're listening to this, you've already answered one question, and that is, do you play fantasy football? Because you wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't play. The second question I have for all of you out there is, have you ever been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and have you wanted to come here? My thought is, if you've never been there, you certainly want to come visit the Hall of Fame because you're a football fan. So whether you're a fantasy fan, regular football fan, doesn't matter. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is one of the coolest museums you will see in sports, and it is located right here, not in my real backyard, but in my backyard of Canton, Ohio. And that is where the Fantasy Football Expo is held. This year it is August 8th through the 10th. It is an amazing time. 750 of your closest friends will be there in Canton, Ohio, with all the same passion about fantasy football, drinking, more fantasy football, more drinking. Oh, yeah, and then there's like cornhole games and stuff like that. But it's a blast. You got to come and enjoy it. 3-day weekend. Grab your friends. And I don't care if you're male, female. If you play fantasy football, come on and hang out with us. There are lots of all the best experts in the country will be there. Andy Behrens, Jeff Ratcliffe, let me think, JJ Zachariason, Bob Harris, Marcus Grant, Michael Florio, Matt Harmon, Scott Pianowski. I can go on and on and on. All the best in Canton, Ohio for the weekend. If you follow any of those people, which you probably do outside of us, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay. It's fine. Yeah. You're not cheating on us. I get it. But come and hang out with us. We'll all be there. It's a lot of fun. And if you're just a fan and you want to come and learn, again, on Sunday, we have 3 different stages of panels. Every topic: dynasty, redraft, auction, expert mock draft. The big shots are all on stage answering your questions. It is literally just having your fantasy football stars right in front of you on stage. Call it a Comic Con for fantasy football, call it whatever you want. But it is a great time. You will learn a lot. I don't care what you are in, what leagues you're in, what type of leagues. You will learn something. Come and check us out. It's only $95 for the whole weekend, folks. Now, if you don't buy your tickets by July 15th, it's going to go up. So get them now. So thefantasyfootballexpo.com. Get your tickets, and we will see you in Canton August 8th through the 10th.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. All right, guys, let's get into some football talk here. There's a couple things before we get into our breakouts. That's what we're doing today, guys. We got 5 or 6 breakouts. We're going to kind of break down into some detail. Each one of us have come up with 2 each. But before we get into that funness here, we have some news to talk about, of course. There were some things that happened between 2 weeks ago and until now, so to get through. And it all starts here with Jonnu Smith and a couple other IDP things that we're not going to get into because we don't do IDP, at least in a fantasy analysis type of way, consistently. But Jonnu Smith, the former Dolphins, as a Dolphins fan here, traded back to his former OC, Arthur Smith, in Pittsburgh here. And Jonnu Smith is going to be joining Aaron Rodgers, Pat Freiermuth, DK Metcalf in Pittsburgh now with, you could say questionable number 2 pass catching role currently in Pittsburgh right now. So how do you guys feel about Jonnu Smith in Pittsburgh? Bob, I'll kind of let you start us off here.
Every year, Arthur Smith has to ruin our wet dreams, doesn't he? It doesn't matter. He's just always there. It's like if you have nightmares and you're sweating and you go to the doctor, they're going to go, "What's wrong?" And every time Arthur Smith coaches a team, he's got to screw up somebody's fantasy value. Well, here we are again. I certainly love Jonnu Smith. I picked him up last year in the middle of the season for so many teams and made the playoffs in 12 out of my 15 leagues because of Jonnu Smith in Miami going to Pittsburgh. So yes, we know Jonnu Smith and we know Arthur Smith loves him. So part of me is like, I want to believe he'll still be as productive, but I also don't believe it at the same time. It's like, because when Arthur Smith pulls you in and you think that Kyle Pitts is going to be great, and then reality hits. I've moved Jonnu down. I've had him like 6th or 7th. I think I now have him 13th, maybe right beside Freiermuth. Like I feel like they're just going to match each other's stats, which is going to be at best. And I think it's going to be you know me, I'm all about consistency. By the way, if you haven't got your guide, make sure you get that. And here's a guy that was one of the most consistent tight ends last year in Jonnu Smith, going to a team that usually never has consistent tight ends. Now, Freiermuth was in the top 12, but then again, Steve, I'm pretty sure you could have lined up and been in the top 12 tight ends for any team. So I'm not, super excited about just because you're in the top 12, because I think the number 12 tight end last year was like 47% consistent, which is pathetic.
Yeah.
That's tight ends, right? So, we had a good value in Jonnu, maybe even in Freiermuth, because he was going to be maybe the second guy catching the ball on the team. Aaron Rodgers is not a big fan of tight ends. At least he hasn't been. He had a few years way back with like Jermichael Finley, I think. But yeah. But if you remember him, then you remember when dinosaurs roamed the earth as well. Yeah, I'm just not that excited about it. I mean, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, so I'm not holding my breath. If one or the other has a really good season, I'll be really shocked, because I just don't see any consistency coming out of either one. And one guy, Jonnu Smith could have a 3-touchdown game and then not score for the next 4 weeks. I mean, that's the kind of crap I'm expecting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely is very frustrating. The only thing you could say is that, his last 2 seasons with Arthur Smith, he combined for, I think it's like just close to 1,000 yards and 11 total touchdowns in 2 seasons, one in Atlanta, one his last year together in Tennessee. So, there's obviously some consistency that he likes Jonnu Smith enough to go and trade for him when he's already has a solid tight end, a decent blocking tight end, Darnell Washington. But Coach Tyler, how do you feel about Jonnu? Is there any chance in your mind for him to still thrive?
I don't know if I'd say there's a chance for him to thrive. I think there's a chance for him to still be consistent, but definitely not what he was in Miami, or even really what he was in the past with Arthur Smith. Like you said, he's walking into a situation where they have a tight end that, the Steelers franchise, at least as long as I have been playing fantasy football, has loved their tight ends, right? I started playing fantasy football in the, middle 2010s, big Heath Miller fans, right? Then this young guy, Freiermuth, comes out And every time he touches the ball, you can hear that crowd over the TV yelling, Moose. Like, this is a team that loves their tight ends and their starters. But Arthur Smith wanted to go get his guy and didn't really sacrifice anything on the offensive side of the ball except clarity, right? This is a team that, they had a decent number of weapons and a decent, name value behind their offense going into, the DK Metcalf trade. You still had George Pickens there, right? You have Muth, who's this young ascending tight end who's been in the league for a few years now and should start really hitting his stride. You have, Jalen Warren, and then you go out and draft Caleb Johnson, but then you go out and trade George Pickens away. And then you go out and you add another tight end to the mix for a quarterback that doesn't absolutely pepper tight ends with receptions. And so I don't really know what to make of it for fantasy because there's just a whole bunch of the Steelers offense that I don't know what to make of it, right? We don't know how good Aaron Rodgers is going to be. We don't know the splits of the backfield. We don't know what the tight end sets are going to look like right now. Who's going to be the number 2 pass catcher, presumably behind DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf could be the number 2. And, Darnell Washington could go out and be the number 1 pass catcher for all we know, right? Like, Arthur Smith
3 weeks, and then he won't catch the ball the rest of the year.
Yeah, Arthur Smith offenses don't make sense.
Yeah,
and it's like Bob said, it's just evidence every offseason and every year. We want to try and project it and we want to guess it. And Johnny Smith coming off a couple good years in Miami, we want to project him to be like Bob. He had him a top 6 tight end.
Yeah, it was top 4 in both total points and consistency at 71%. Here's another thing that we didn't even throw out there. How what's the word I'm looking for? How dedicated is Aaron Rodgers going to be to playing football? He already said, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to play one more year. So let's say halfway through the year, he's not feeling good. My shoulder hurts a little. I pulled a muscle. Does he sit out for 3 or 4 games? Because I'm going to retire anyway. So that's the other stuff. It's like, I have very little faith in Aaron Rodgers being on the field half the time. Now, he could start off like gangbusters and, they could be 4-0 and he might be excited for a while. But what happens when he only throws the ball to DK Metcalf 5 times in a game and they lose and Metcalf goes off on him on Twitter? It's just one match away from just – and – be honest with you, I want nothing to do with any Steelers.
Essentially stay away
from Jalen Warren, just because I do believe that they'll give him the ball a lot until Caleb Johnson proves he can take the game away or take the, the stuff away from him. But I do like Jalen Warren because he's going so late as well. It's like they're going to run the ball, that. But
they for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I want nothing to do with that passing game at all.
That's fair. I mean, I think best case scenario, if you look what the Falcons did a couple years ago, Drake London had 900 yards. Kyle Pitts had 600 yards. Jonas Smith had 582 yards. Like if the 3 of them, Metcalf and Freiermuth finish like that, like it's not great, but it's bye week replacements level value out of that. But they're not. I don't think I'm drafting them in any normal 12-man leagues at all. Pretty much, I'm going to go with someone who I know has a legit starting role, who's going to see the majority of the work on the offense. It's hard to trust this whole Steelers situation. So let's stay away from that. But as Miami lost their starting tight end, they were left with absolutely nothing, unless you know Julian Hill. But they went out and decided, you know what? We don't want the 31-year-old tight end. We'd rather have the 33-year-old tight end that didn't play last season. And Darren Waller, who gets traded from the New York Giants to the Miami Dolphins. Some picks were involved, but real quick, guys, do you guys see value in Darren Waller at 33?
I'm surprised he didn't just try to pull Antonio Gates out of retirement, but since he's going to be in the induction ceremonies a week before the Expo, I guess he probably told him no. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where this came from. Something about, I think there was a Miami tight ends coach connection.
I think our offensive
Giants or something.
Our offensive coordinator, I believe, is Frank Smith, if I'm not mistaken. I could be completely wrong, but I know Frank Smith played with Darren Waller back when they were in Oakland at the time.
Okay.
And we had one of his best seasons. So he said
that Arthur Smith's brother. I mean,
I don't think so. I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of, though.
Okay. Arthur Smith, Jonnu Smith, Frank Smith, they're all related.
Yeah, Frank Smith. Yeah. I think Darren Wallace said in an interview with John Gruden that he would only come back to the NFL. I think it was like a podcast interview or something. That he would come back if John Gruden ever got another chance to coach, or if it was Frank Smith asking him to come back.
Okay.
So maybe that's the whole reason. I can't see it. Miami's first time this with under Mike McDaniels has a high target percentage to tight ends. Prior to this, it was nothing. And they had Mike Gesicki. They had some decent tight ends. It's going through the wide receivers. It's going through Devon A-Chain, who's going to see a big pump probably in targets with Jonas Smith gone. You could take a shot late, but I'm not counting on Darren Waller as my tight end one and any fantasy team this year.
I'll give you. I think I did this back in our tight ends whenever we were prepping for the draft. Y'all know I'm a Texas Tech Red Raider. Stash deep on your taxi, Jalen Conyers, because I don't think Darren Waller's going to do anything, and I don't know who the heck Julian Hill is. So go throw him down there. He's got a little buzz coming out of camp. Swiss Army knife guy, very athletic. So,
or they'll go get Jason Witten, or who knows?
So sign
Tony
sign me up. Yeah, so guys, don't overthink into this Darren Waller news. I know everyone's picking him up in Dynasty, but not redraft, guys. Stay away for now until.
Hey, but think about it. Scott Fishbowl, 3 points per reception, 3.5 points per reception. Hey, you never know.
You never know.
Round 20, throw him on your team.
That's the best way to do it. I've started mine today, so. There you go. Right. Well, that is all we have for news this week, guys. I'm sure we're going to hear some more things as we get close to training camps in a few weeks. The Hall of Fame game is literally 24 days from now. I did not realize that. It's actually in July, not even in August. So get ready for that, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, guys, let's talk about some breakouts. And we're going to start right here at the top, Bob, with you. Your breakout, Cedric Tillman, Cleveland Browns wide receiver. Tell us why Cedric Tillman is one of your breakouts.
Well, mostly because you just posted it right there. So as you know, anytime you're looking for breakouts, it's got to be somebody. You can always say, well, this guy's, it could be a Wayne Dale Robinson, it could be this or that. But I always kind of look at who is somebody that just had this, fire, just 1, 2, 3 games. And Tillman was that guy. I mean, I'm a Browns fan, so obviously I kind of saw it in those 3 games in week 7 through 9, as he said. That game, 225 yards, 3 touchdowns in that span. He was the number 1 fantasy receiver with 64.5 points during those 3 weeks. In weeks 1 through 6, he earned 3.4 total points. So, and then after that, whoever the quarterback was went down. I can't remember who it was at the time, but
Jameis.
Yeah, it was a Jameis. Yeah, Jameis goes down. So now we move forward. We have 37 quarterbacks now in the camp for the Browns. And so we're hoping and praying that Joe Flacco can stay healthy and stay upright, and possibly Tillman can kind of regain. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate you, brother. Can regain that. Maybe he's not going to be, the number 1 receiver the whole year. He's not going to put those kind of numbers in a 3-game span. But what I do see is with Judy on the other side, Njoku in the middle, even Harold Fannin Jr., is a young rookie. They got a couple good running backs, and Quishon Judkins. I feel like, he can, if he stays healthy, quarterback stays healthy, that he can be that breakout guy. And his ADP is round 14. I think I drafted him in the Scott Fishbowl in round 18, something like that, something way deep. So I just feel like there's just a lot of potential for him to keep putting up good numbers. I could see him as a consistent guy. Judy will be your big play guy. But if Tillman gets 5 catches for 60 yards a week, that's 11 points. That's a clutch game. That's consistency. So if he gets 12 to 15 every week and he's your, wide receiver 5 and you can put him as your flex every week, and then every once in a while he has a big game or something, like when they play the Bengals and the score will be 52 to 50. I think that'll be a good, I think there's just great potential for him to do that. So Deontay Johnson, Jamie, stop drinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like the take there because I wanted to hear it because I was like, oh, Cedric Tillman. I like the names because I've always been a big fan of Cedric Tillman, even back in his days in Tennessee here. He was someone I liked watching coming out the NFL draft here, someone who had high expectations for. Coach Tyler, I'll kind of let you, do you want to continue off that? Is there anything else you want to say about Cedric Tillman?
Yeah, Cedric Tillman did have that insane streak, but I'm not a big Cedric Tillman believer. It might just possibly be because the Browns don't know who is throwing him the ball, and that is going to play a lot into what that offense looks like. And so I think that he definitely, like you said, if he's your wide receiver 5 or 6 and he's able to go out and put up flex value, that's outstanding. But he's not necessarily a guy that I'm going to take that shot on unless I'm getting great value on him past that in a draft.
I just think that there's definitely a potential where Cedric Tillman could take over as the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I know everyone is high on Jerry Jeudy, but again, I never was someone who was very high on Jeudy and how he catches the ball and just everything in between. I just felt like Jeudy was I'm trying to think of the right word here. Last season, I felt like it was just the targets had to go somewhere. And Jerry Jeudy just took those targets because prior to Jerry Jeudy breakout, it was Cedric Tillman's breakout happening. And then Jerry Jeudy came in and dominated the second half of the season when Cedric Tillman kind of got banged up. The quarterback situation kind of got all messed up. So I think Cedric Tillman has an opportunity to really thrive. And again, like Bob said, you're getting him late. He's a guy that can break out, be kind of like a league winner and do something because this Browns offense, they want to get back to running. But if you see that division, they have no shot at just running the ball the whole time. They have to throw. They have to stay up with what this crazy division they're in. And it's going to involve with Cedric Tillman taking a shot at him as a breakout candidate for 2025. So, all right, moving on. We're moving on to Coach Tyler's first breakout here. Second-year quarterback, Drake Maye, New England Patriots. Coach Tyler, why is Drake Maye a breakout for 2025?
Yeah, Drake Maye is someone that excites me. He came into the league on an abysmal Patriots team. And while the record didn't necessarily show it, he was QB 18 overall from week 6, which is the week that he took over against my Houston Texans, of course. And he put up 15.4 points per game. So to put that into perspective, from week 6 through week 18, that was 0.4 points per game lower than Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick, savior of football. And that was a higher number than both Matt Stafford and Jordan Love in that time. So he's able to score fantasy points like you have on there, 5 games, over 20 points last season. And the biggest attribution to that is his rushing ability, right? You look at Drake Maye, he didn't look like much of a rusher, right? But from that week 6 on, after he took over, he had 409 rushing yards, which ranked 4th in the entire NFL for a quarterback behind Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. So if you extrapolate that number over 17 games for a season, that would have finished 4th behind Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. This offense has made additions to help him out, right? They got Garrett Bradbury and Morgan Moses to beef up that offensive line. They went out and got Stephon Diggs in free agency, who we'll see how well he's moving, but he's having fun on his boats down in Miami, I'll tell you that. But they make the additions in free agency to help Drake Maye out. And then they go into the draft and use the 4th overall pick to get Will Campbell to help him on the offensive line. They get Jared Wilson, who is a great interior offensive lineman in the 3rd round from Georgia. And then they still get Travion Henderson and Kyle Williams to help him as weapons, right? And one of the biggest tells for me that the Patriots are going to take a step forward is Vegas, right? The Patriots were 4-13 last year. And New England's win total is set at 8.5 on DraftKings.
What?
Vegas thinks that the Patriots are going to at least double their win total from last year with the additions that they've made.
Wow.
Okay.
And they didn't add a Saquon Barkley. They didn't add a Bijan Robinson, right? They just believe that Drake Maye is going to take that step forward. If the Patriots are going to get to 8 wins next season, it's going to be because Drake Maye took a big step forward. He's going to be the lifeblood of this offense. I think he's able to play the Josh McDaniels game well. Just the dink and dunk, make a quick read, get the ball out. But again, he has that rushing ability, and he only had 2 rushing touchdowns last year. I think they're going to allow him to work a little more freely, and they're going to allow that number to go up. And, of course, rushing touchdowns are just a little bit more valuable in most leagues than passing touchdowns for a quarterback. So you're getting a franchise that is investing in this player and the offense around him. Vegas thinks that the Patriots are going to be twice as good as they were last year with their offensive additions, because that defense isn't going to win them 8 games no matter how hard they try. I just think Drake Maye is going to have to be the lifeblood of this team. The fans are excited for it. Everyone else is excited for it. And I think Drake Maye has what it takes to make a big step and even possibly finish as a low-end quarterback 1 this season.
God, my dynasty team's better. No, that's great breakdown there, Coach Tyler. I love that. I'm a big fan of Drake Maye, even though I'm a Dolphins fan, but I try to keep my fandom and fantasy on different levels. But Bob, anything to add on Drake Maye?
I mean, honestly, you probably made me move him up a few spots in the rankings because I didn't have him that high. Injuries hurt him a little bit last year. Believe it or not, he was 54% consistent, which doesn't sound very good until you realize how bad quarterbacks were consistency-wise last year. He was 10th.
No.
That's not good.
No.
Now, that's good because it sounds like it's top 12, but 54% is not good. But his second half of the season, he did pick it up quite a bit, as you mentioned. He's a guy that you probably can draft as your second quarterback. So if you're one of those late round QBs, which I tend to be, I usually will wait and get, a quarterback in round 8 and a quarterback in round 10. Drake Maye could be my round 10 guy, and could be a top 12. I mean, again, he was 10th in consistency. Bo Nix was in the top 10 last year as a rookie. So yeah, I mean, you got some more weapons. If Stephon Diggs can stay off the boat and, stay out of trouble, he's fine. They added Trayvon Henderson, who's a good receiving back as well as a good running back, and to match up with Stevenson, with Ramondre. I can't argue with it. I mean, I'm not jumping up and down to draft Drake Maye, but again, if I'm looking and I'm like, okay, this is a deep enough league, I could add an extra quarterback to have. He certainly will be one of my top guys at QB2 for sure.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Drake Maye, but my only issue is that when I'm like, all right, Drake Maye is going to break out this shit, that means somebody on his offense also has to have a really good season.
Yeah.
Is that going to be Stephon Diggs? I don't know a guy coming off a major injury who's 31 years old is going to have a breakout. Does that mean Kyle Williams is going to break out in the 3rd round as a rookie? I don't know. Is it Demario Douglas, who's been pretty much just a 600-yard wide receiver? Is it a guy like Kayshon Boutte?
Could be the Hunter Henry year.
Is it Hunter Henry having over 1,000 yards? Like, a lot of those scenarios, I don't see that happening, which throws my doubt in that Drake Maye's breakout is coming this year. I want it to come this year for his fantasy value because I think he's got a lot of great talent, and maybe he could do somewhat of the Josh Allen where he says, I'll do it myself kind of mentality, but I'm still a little concerned about a full breakout. I think year 3 is where I'm going to be really I think they're going to get him another weapon. I think Diggs is gone after this year. They're going to probably cut him after a mediocre season, get themselves a rear wide receiver in there. But again, it could absolutely happen this year, but his weapons still scare me. Hence why I put it in my notes, enough weapons to break out. But I still love Drake Maye, the talent, a lot. Don't give up on him. There's a lot still to come from him. So personally. don't mean it shit on your player, Coach Tyler, but
I mean, to that point, I would say, look at Jordan Love in 23, right? He was a top 5 quarterback, and his highest receiver was Jaden Reed at 793 yards. It's just spreading the ball around.
All right.
There's a way without having the stars. It's just, can Josh McDaniels figure it out again the way he had it with Brady?
That's fair. I respect that. I like that. I like that rebuttal. All right, over to my first breakout candidate, and it's Rome Odunze. I mean, if you don't know this at this point, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are in on Rome Odunze, but I have to feel like every time I can talk about a breakout, it has to be Rome Odunze is a guy that you need to be drafting in redraft this year, or if you're in Dynasty, trading for in Dynasty. The former 9th overall pick, I felt like he kind of got a little lost in the shuffle after the NFL draft, after the Bears go and get Loveland and Luther Burden, and like the hype kind of has gone down a little bit, which I think has helped his ADP currently right now. And it's like it's a solid place where it's worth taking the shot on a player who we haven't seen, obviously have an elite season yet. Obviously, he's only going in year 2, but that's the whole potential of a breakout season out of him. And he showed us last year that he's got a lot of potential. I mean, he had 100 targets last year as the 3rd wide receiver in that offense there. Caleb Williams was throwing the ball a ton last year, although very inaccurately, but that's going to get cleaned up this year. Ben Johnson is now the coach in town there. He's going to get this team to where he likes, and I don't think it's just going to be a run like they had in Detroit constantly. They're going to throw the ball a little bit more. They don't have that running backfield to completely trust them, to have that Nick Knuckles and Sonic kind of mentality back there. They're going to have to throw the ball. You drafted the number 1 overall pick for a quarterback. You drafted the top 10 wide receiver. You have another top 20 wide receiver in DJ Moore. Rome Odunze is going to take another step in this offense here, this coming season here. Keenan Allen's gone. Keenan Allen had 100 targets last year. That's gone now. Who's going to pick that slack up there? Rome Odunze is going to have his targets. Maybe Luther Burden. Again, I'm not a big Luther Burden fan to truly break out in year 1. I think Colston Loveland is going to split time with Cole Kmet, and they're going to kind of cancel each other out to their elite upside that they're going to offer. So it's going to come back down to Rome Odunze. He was someone last year that Caleb Williams went and looked for, especially in the red zone. He had 14 red zone targets last year. That was top 15 last year in the league. You know what he did though? He only had 3 touchdowns off those targets. Not very good. One of the lowest in the top 15 there. Expect that to change this coming season. They're going to find better ways, more unique, efficient ways to get Rome Odunze the ball this coming season. And he just reminds me of so much of a last year's breakout in Jackson Smith and Jigba. Very similar situation where coming into a rookie season behind 2 veteran wide receivers, still manages to have a high target share. A little inefficient at times his rookie season, comes into year 2, new offense, a more pass, I would say kind of not pass heavy, but more unique passing mentality or offensive mentality in Ben Johnson, just like they had with Ben Grubbs last year, even though I think Ben Grubbs got fired, didn't he? Or am I just saying that out loud? Maybe, I don't remember.
I think so.
Maybe he didn't. So sorry, Ben Grubbs, if you're listening. And the guy's going to step up in year 2 with an older DJ Moore, who's now 28 years old. He's not the young guy that we always assumed him to be for years on end. Rome Odunze is going to break out this year, and just like Jackson Smith and Jigba last year, you need to buy in him now. And Jackson Smith was going a lot later than what Rome Odunze is going, but he is someone you need to target in drafts this coming season, who's going to put up potentially jump up to a wide receiver 2 value this coming season. But how do you guys feel about Rome Odunze? Bob, I'll let you start us off.
First off, love the name. So last year, Keenan Allen missed a game in week 3. Odunze went 6 for 122 and a touchdown. As you mentioned, Keenan Allen's gone. You bring in Ben Johnson, you look at his team in Detroit, and you see Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. He comes to Chicago. Amon-Ra St. Brown is DJ Moore. Who's our Jamison Williams? It's that guy right there. I love him as well. The problem is, of course, so does everybody else. So he's not Cedric Tillman. You're not going to get him in round 14.
No, you're not.
So it's one of those, you have to know who you're drafting against. Is it a bunch of Bears fans? So I think his value is a little high, unless he has that breakout. And I think that's the issue. Some people are like, wide receiver 34. Okay, what am I looking at in that same spot? Because you've got Odunze, but you also have like a Calvin Ridley, who's the number one guy on his team, and they have to target him a lot because that's all they got. So there's a lot of people around him, and it's going to be one of those where you'll take Odunze, somebody else may take Ridley, someone else may take a George Pickens, somebody else may take whoever else is available there, that area. But I would love to have him on my teams. I just don't know if it's going to, I'm going to have to really think like, okay, where am I at? And now if I'm in round, let's say 4 or 5, which is where he's going, do I need to draft him now? Can I take a chance to wait one more round, and will he be gone? And, and he could be, end up as a wide receiver too, which would be fantastic if you got him at wide receiver 34. It's just a question of your league, who you're drafting against, and where are they going to take him. Because I want to say maybe my Scott Fish Bowl, because again, we were in Chicago for the live draft. I think Odunze went I want to say end of round 2.
Oh my gosh.
Beginning of round 3.
Jeez.
He's currently 71 on Fantasy Pros ADP right now. That's his exact location.
Yeah. So round 5, 6. In that scenario, as my wide receiver 3, I'd be perfectly happy with that. But like I said, it just depends on where you're drafting, because when you're drafting in Chicago, you ain't getting him that late.
No, not in Chicago.
Yeah.
Maybe Green Bay.
Yeah, Green Bay, Minnesota. Yeah.
Okay. Detroit. Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. But no, I love him too. I think he's going to break out. How big, how much, it's hard to tell. I mean, his numbers last year, when you look at them, are like, 49th in total points, 24% consistency, just had that one really big game. But the talent's there. Caleb Williams has a better offensive line. He's not going to be running for his life on every play.
Sure.
That certainly makes it easier to make better passes, more completions. Like you said, 14 red zone targets and 3 touchdowns tells me Caleb Williams is running for his life, throws the ball. Yeah, he targeted him, but it may not have been anywhere near him when the ball left his hands.
It's probably true. Coach Tyler, anything else to add before we move on?
Yeah, kind of like Bob said, I think the price is just it's baked in for a breakout at this point. So if you believe it, like I really like Rome. I don't think the Bears are going to have too much of a running game. I do like Roschon Johnson, not enough to, put him too high, vault him up. But they have DeAndre Swift. He did his best work as a receiving back, not as a genuine, I'm going to hand you the ball, go be a running back. So I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. And one of the things that kind of slips through the cracks is how many 2 tight end sets Ben Johnson ran with Detroit. So I think that takes the Luther burdens off the fields, and it's going to be Rome Odunze, it's going to be DJ Moore, and then the tight ends battling it out for all their targets, like y'all said. But I like Rome Odunze. I love the talent. I think he is set for a breakout. The question is going to be, is he going to be able to break through all the people around him more than is he going to be talented enough to be the breakout?
That's fair. Just I would take him as my wide receiver too, personally. That's how much how passionate I feel about him. So you guys actually might be able to help me out with my next Scott Fishbowl pick, to be honest, if you guys want to help me out here.
Always here for you.
All right.
I've already drafted, so I can.
All right. Obviously, you guys know what the scorings are for the most part here. I have a 2-4. I took CeeDee Lamb at the 1-9, and I have an options of likely either Joe Burrow, Neighbors, St. Brown, Puka, maybe Trey McBride. If I go the tight end route, what would you guys do in round 2? It is super flex, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
As Bob said, tight ends are worth a lot. So
tight ends are huge. I'm trying to find my I'm looking for my link for my draft. All right, so 2-4. All right. So in my draft, I'm on Ron St. Brown. Went 2-4, but I'm assuming he's gone.
No, the guy's picking. The guy before me is picking right now. He's in the draft thing. So
okay, he's probably watching the show, so he'll take him.
Maybe.
So how many quarterbacks went in your first round?
Just 3.
Okay, that's how many went in ours. Assuming Bowers is gone, McBride's gone.
McBride's there.
Oh, dude.
McBride.
Dude. It's not even an option at this point.
Right. And what's the backup plan if it's not McBride? He might take McBride because he wanted Brock Bowers in round 1, but he couldn't get him.
Okay.
I think I go Burrow there with Superflex because they don't have a defense. They're going to be.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you run into is, wait a minute. Are you doing MFL?
I'm on Sleeper.
Okay. So they're doing you don't have to even start a quarterback, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's Superflex, so you can either do either or.
Yeah, but in this one, you usually don't have Superflex where you don't have to start any quarterbacks.
Yeah,
which I found amusing. Yeah, I think if McBride's there, you have to take him as a top tight end. If not, take Kittle or Kelsey in round 4, if they get to that. But yeah, Burrow went in round 3. Actually,
wow.
So the guy, it was 2-9 or 1-9 went Josh Allen, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Joe Burrow, 1-2-3.
Wow.
Burrow could fall to that spot. Interestingly enough, somebody took, and again, it's Chicago.
Yeah.
You would have guessed they took at the end of round 2.
Odunze.
No,
Caleb?
They did do that. No, the quarterback.
Caleb Williams?
No, Justin Fields.
Oh, God. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Chicago's a different animal there. All right.
Yeah. So, I think we all literally just had to clear our eyes for a moment.
I will think it over then.
Yeah. I mean,
gives me some options here.
Running backs are more valuable in that scoring method.
Derrick Henry's still there. I think Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry actually was picked right after that pick in round 2.
All right. So I think
Henry was a big value because of attempts and first downs and all that happy stuff.
All right. I think I might go either McBride, Henry, or St. Brown. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Neighbors is a good pick too.
Yeah.
But running backs and tight ends are. So just to give you my draft, and I was picking from the 7th spot. I went Lawrence Jackson, Kyron Williams, Drake London, Kelsey, Devontae Adams, and the Njoku, Juwan Jennings, Jalen Warren, Tracy, Samuel, Stafford, Pittman, Garendo, Tillman, round 14. And then on and on. But that was
a good draft.
Yeah. So I picked to be in the middle because when it's that 3rd round reversal, you never have to worry about being at the wrong end of a run. So.
That's why I went late.
Yeah,
I get high pick.
Well, that's right. That's why Burrow got picked then in round 3 because it was 3-4, not 3-9.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Anyway, okay, back to that.
Back to the show, guys. Sorry about that. So if you're doing the Scott Fishbowl, let us know. Hit us up.
Football, man.
Yeah. If you're doing the Scott Fishbowl, you got to be, getting some inside information right here. So
right.
All right. So the next breakouts we have a little bit of a battle here, guys. Obviously, we have 2 Buffalo Bills wide receivers, and it's not Keon Coleman, who you maybe think it could have been potentially. Bob has Elijah Moore. If you don't know who Elijah Moore is, you should know who Elijah Moore is. And Coach Tyler has Khalil Shakir on the other side here. So, Bob, you are our guest, so I will allow you to go first and why you think Elijah Moore is the breakout.
Well, again, the definition is how much better. So a breakout to me, I guess, just like Cedric Tillman, is a guy that has done very little, and he's not somebody that's highly drafted or even highly thought of, and it's just boom's going to explode onto the field or explode onto the fantasy world. So Tillman's a guy for Cleveland. This guy was in Cleveland. He was drafted by the Jets. He was very talented coming out of college, but in most cases, he was always behind some superstars. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper in Cleveland. He's had injury issues. That's another thing that's kept him from breaking out. But I think this kid's got a lot of talent. I've seen him when he's had the opportunity. He's looked great. They've been raving about him in preseason in Buffalo. And let's be honest, what has he got to beat out? So the best wide receiver in Buffalo last year had 76 catches for 820 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's the best one. That is the guy that Coach Kyler is going to talk about. That's not great numbers. And at this point, Elijah Moore could take Keon Coleman's spot, or at least be, if he gains some kind of rapport as a more seasoned veteran with a guy like Josh Allen, there's no reason to think that Moore couldn't be close to those numbers. Again, if he matches those numbers, he's tied the best wide receiver in Buffalo last year. I think Keon Coleman has a lot to learn. He's still young, a little green behind the ears. And I just think this is a kid that you could practically get for free, probably won't even be drafted. You might be able to get him on the waiver wire, or you just get him at the end of your draft. He has shown some great flashes. Like I said, I've heard numerous reports out of camp as how great he's looked, how much Josh Allen really has kind of had his eyes open to Elijah's more talent. If the guy can stay healthy, I think he easily can be a breakout. Now, is he going to have 100 catches for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns? Probably not. But that's more the Buffalo offense than it is Elijah Moore's problem.
I mean, could 800 yards be considered a breakout? Absolutely.
Absolutely. For a guy
like Shakir.
Just like Shakir last year. Anything,
yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely. I would be thrilled if Elijah Moore had 800 yards. That's like what anyone who wants a player who's essentially likely to go undrafted, most likely, to have that kind of breakout season, just like Shakir had kind of this past season. Right. So absolutely, I get it. Coach Tyler, I'm assuming you're expecting Khalil Shakir to double his production, 1,600 yards, 8 touchdowns as a breakout candidate. Is that true, or am I just am I messing with you right now?
I don't think he's going to double production. I will say, if you look at his target numbers, they've more than doubled every year. So he is, trajectory-wise on pace for at least 200 targets this next season, which sounds perfect to me for a breakout. But like Bob said, we're looking for guys that haven't necessarily elevated to that point that can take a step forward. And you look at Shakir, and he has been consistently getting better and growing more in that offense, right? Wide receiver 130 in 15 games his rookie year. That jumps up to wide receiver 61 his sophomore year, wide receiver 37 last year. And then I'm projecting at least a, low-end wide receiver 2 season this next year for him, right? He's the leader, or he was the leader for the Bills in both regular season and postseason targets, right? I want to say he had 20 postseason targets from Josh Allen in the 3 playoff games that they had, which more than doubled any other offensive player. Not to say that they had, a great stable of receivers behind him, but Josh Allen was looking for him in the most important moments, right? And he's shown this constant progression. But what helps me believe that Shakir is going to continue this upward trajectory and break out is, the involvement of the front office with Shakir, right? We see, like you said, he didn't have the most statistically amazing year for a receiver, especially one tied to Josh Allen, but the front office went out and signed him to a 4-year extension worth at its base level $53 million. So the offense and the coaching staff believe in Shakir and who he is. They believe that he is a vital part of that offense. And unless Dalton Kincaid makes a huge jump forward, he's still the wide receiver 1 tied to, one of the most elite quarterbacks in football and in fantasy football. The offseason additions, like you said, you're getting Elijah Moore for basically free. You're taking the shot on him. That doesn't necessarily scare me off of Shakir taking that step forward, right? They added Josh Palmer, who's going to be, that Gabe Davis type player who's going to hit some 80-yard touchdown and have a great boom week for you twice a season, and then he's just going to be doing cardio for a few $1 million a year. But I just see Shakir being able to take that step forward. I see constant growth in his, box score, his stats. But I also see, 100 targets last season. I think that Buffalo is going to need to throw the ball more. James Cook, he's upset. He's disgruntled, whatever. He's reporting to training camp. He's doing all the things finally, but he's not going to want to push past for this team that's not rewarding him, right? And so they're going to need to throw the ball more. The front office has been very vocal about, hey, Josh Allen, quit running the ball every chance you get because you're our franchise. We need you. So he's going to have to throw the ball. I think Shakir is the number one. I think he's able to take a step forward, as much as I would love for him to have, 150 receptions for 1,600 yards and continue that, double it and give it to the next person pace. I just don't think that there's a world where he's not, outside of injury, where he's not a 1,000-yard receiver this season, right? And you look at even the touchdowns. If you look at his stats, it's really such a funny, just like double it number, right? First year, 1 touchdown. Second year, 2 touchdowns. Last year, 4 touchdowns. You know what that means this year? 8 touchdowns, right? I think Shakir is going to find the end zone a little bit more. It's going to attribute to more fantasy value. I think he's going to be able to hit that 1K number because the Bills don't want Josh Allen being Superman if it's not to go to the Super Bowl. So I see the world where Shakir is at least a low-end wide receiver too, and he continues that upward trajectory. Is that where it ends? Most likely. But I just look at the numbers and everything looks more and more like he's being involved. The front office believes in him to pay him the money. I just see an upward trajectory for Shakir, and that results in him breaking out even more than he did last year and adding another 200 yards and few touchdowns on top of those great target numbers.
All right. I'm honestly not sure who won the battle there, but
here's what I'll say. We're both right.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, again, if Moore can take that step and maybe even get close to Shakir's numbers this year or last year, and Shakir moves up into the 90 catches, 95 catches, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, we're both right. And so I will just add to support the Shakir numbers. So week 7 through week 15 last year, Shakir was 18th in total points and had an 88% consistency rating during that period. Now he cooled off in 16, 17, 18. Could have been more about the fact that the Bills had a spot in the playoffs and they may have just kind of coasted in. But no, I have him as a great value, in the book. I like him a lot as well. I wasn't going to argue with you that he was a better player. I just say that we're both right.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at Shakir's value, even for, being the number one and having, a wide receiver, late 30s production last year on sleeper ADP, at least he's going as the 98th overall player, right? He's going
it was fantastic.
He's going 2 picks before Kyle Pitts.
Right.
If you can get me Josh Allen's number one receiver for 2 picks before Kyle Pitts, I'm in on that value every second of every day.
And if Moore does break out and is better than Keon Coleman, then now that gives teams that have to worry about Elijah Moore, that allows them not to double cover Shakir, or at least focus on Shakir. So that could even give him more opportunities as well. So no, I think the Bills, have to throw. We don't know about James Cook, even though I love Ray Davis. I'd be perfectly happy with Ray Davis being the starter. But yeah, I think they both have the potential to break out for sure.
Absolutely. Hopefully not too much. I hate the Bills, but for fantasy, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I like Shakir, so I have him a lot of teams. I probably will draft him in many places, and I don't hate Elijah Moore. I've always been a big fan. I really wanted him to thrive. He just had a lot of bad luck in the NFL. So, All right, let's get over to the last breakout of the night. For me, And it's the Cowboy running backs, mostly Javonte Williams, a little Jaden Blue, but mostly Javonte Williams for me. The reason I say that is because I think there will be at least one running back out of this group, whether if it's Javonte Williams. I think there's an absolutely possibility that Jaden Blue gets that opportunity. Didn't have overly a lot of tread coming into the NFL, has a very speedy kind of running back. I think there's a lot of upside for Jaden Blue to kind of thrive in this Cowboys offense, but that I think will be dictated if a guy like Javonte Williams is unable to return to any kind of form that we saw in him, especially from his rookie season. Obviously, if you remember his rookie season, he had 900 yards, looked very promising. A very nasty injury in his sophomore season, and he just really hasn't looked the part since. Things have not gone well, especially his yards per carry has been under 4 yards a carry over the last 2 seasons. And I think a change of scenery is just what Javonte Williams needed to get out of Denver, to get out of an offense and a coaching regime that didn't draft him, didn't really care about him, wasn't one of Sean Payton's guys. And now he gets an opportunity in Dallas. Dallas may not have the elite offensive line they had maybe 8 years ago, but their offensive line is kind of re-improved, building up in the right direction, which I think will help this offense overall. The return of Dak Prescott is going to be a key factor here. Obviously, we saw last year that Dallas's offense could not run very well without Dak Prescott, and things did not look well. You have Dak back and healthy, and when Dak's healthy, despite the Cowboys' lack of playoff success, they do very well in fantasy. They are able to put up fantasy points, which helps put up fantasy points for us a lot. And, in 4 of the last 5 seasons, the Cowboys backfield at least one top 15 running back. The one time they didn't do it was last year. Dak Prescott missed half the season. So, and then they also were filling in with trying to get Zeke Elliott, who is way past his prime, to be a RB1 again, which he was not. But if you look at these Cowboys running backs over the years, that they always seem to have, especially since Zeke's been there, a guy that is taking a lot of the work, seeing a lot of the ground game, seeing involvement in the passing game here. Even last year, when they finally said, oh, you know what, Zeke, get out of here. Rico Dowling, you're our guy. And he dominated. He was he was killing it last, I think, 4 or 5 weeks of the season, 100 rushing yards per game. And I think Javonte Williams can get back to form what he was prior to this whole injury situation, or at least exceed expectation for someone you're probably drafting round 8, 9, 10, depending on where he falls in the order right now. He's someone that could, I think, potentially finish in the top 15, 16, because the opportunity presents itself. Miles Sanders is, very inconsistent over his last few seasons outside of Philly. Jaden Blue, while young and exciting, we don't know if he's ever going to make it in the NFL. He was a, fifth round pick in the NFL draft here. So it's not promising that he's going to steal the starting job from him. Javonte Williams, a veteran, the better pass catching running back there. He's seen a heavy pass catching role the last 2 years with over 90 receptions there. And when he was able to see more of a workload, he actually averaged, when he saw at least 10 carries, he averaged a respectable 14 fantasy points per game last year. It just wasn't consistent enough, and things didn't always turn out that way. And he was someone who was able to break off content. 55% of his rushing yards came after contact last year, second best among the top 10 fantasy running backs last year. So Javonte Williams has a lot of opportunity to go out and rebound in his career, something that, not many players can do. I think Javonte Williams is a guy that you should be excited about taking as your 3rd, 4th running back, who, again, could end up being a weekly flex starter for you all season long, and potentially even an RB2 if things go right, as I think they could for him. So Javonte Williams, maybe Jaden Blue, has some breakout candidate potential in 2025. How do you guys feel about this situation here with Williams, maybe Jaden Blue? Bob, I'll let you kind of start us up if anything else to add.
No, I think you, me, and Javonte Williams' mom is probably the only 3 people that have any love for this kid at all. And maybe Tyler, well, we don't know yet. But yeah, I mean, let's look at just a few things. Number 1, Rico Dowdle was the main back last year. If he was any good, wouldn't they have kept him? They didn't. They let him walk. What did he do in fantasy? He was top 24 in both total points and consistency, yet they let him walk. So now you bring in Javonte Williams, who's younger. And the interesting thing is, even with all of the mismatching of running backs in Denver last year, whether it was Estime, whether it was McLaughlin, Javonte was still 30th in total points, 34th in consistency. That's not bad for a guy that was like part-time. Like, yeah. So again, he comes in, if he just matches Rico Dowdle's numbers, you just said it. He's an RB2. That's all he's got to do. That doesn't seem like it's a very difficult thing for a guy that was not that far off at 30th and 34th on a team that they didn't even like him to be out there that much. And he still, like you said, had great yards after the catch, after the hit, after the first contact. Yeah, I mean, I kind of dig him. Scott Fish Bowl, I'm looking at the board again. He went 10th round. I probably should have drafted him instead of Tyrone Tracy. I think I was hoping he'd make it back, but that's okay. But yeah, I kind of dig this kid, and I kind of hope he gets a real chance and they give him the real opportunity. They don't play games with him. If he has a fumble, that they take him out for 3 games and then Blue takes over. I don't know much about rookies, so I can't weigh in on a Jaden Blue, but I think if Javonte gets the chance and he can prove his worth, I mean, obviously there's a big payday for him if he can, whether it's on the Dallas team or somewhere else. And it might just be the opportunity he finally gets to be the player that we thought he was coming out of college.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Tyler, where do you stand? Are you part of the club or no?
No. Speaking of teams that we hate, the Dallas Cowboys come up.
The Houston Texans fan over there. That's why.
Yeah, we don't like those boys up in Dallas. But I look at the Cowboys running back room, and it's just such a hodgepodge that I can't picture one of these guys breaking out on their own. I think it's going to be a whole lot of play the hot hand. And when it comes to, situations that I don't completely see full clarity in, I go to the sources of people that run analytics and are a lot smarter than I am. And that's Vegas and sleeper projections. And so, I look at the sleeper projections for all these running backs, right? One of them is projected over 600 yards, and that's Jaden Blue, 600 total yards. Not one of them is projected over 450 rushing yards or more than 4 touchdowns. Wow. Obviously, it's a projection. They're going off of, a whole bunch of deep analytics that I don't get into and I don't understand the formulas for. But also, sleeper is not usually wrong that much, right? Just like Vegas, it's really never wrong. And so I look at it and I just see, Jaden Blue, he's not a bad running back at all, but I don't think he's the centerpiece, right? He was at Texas and spent every year at Texas behind or kind of in tandem with another back, right? He was there buried on the depth chart with Bijan Robinson, right? He was there semi-splitting time with Jonathan Brooks. He was there this past year splitting time with Trey Wisner, who's not, a terrible running back by any stretch of the means. He's not a, top 10 overall draft pick, but he just can't ever win the backfield, right? He's a guy that's made to split time. Javonte Williams, I want him to be good so bad. This was the first guy that I ever did film study on in fantasy football, right? I went back and watched all the All 22 right after I got the Dynasty Nerds film room. We'll plug that in a minute. But went back, watched everything. I was like, this guy is going to be outstanding. Everyone else was in agreement with me. And then just the wheels fell off. And I just don't see the world where either one, I know this is as a whole, not projecting one or the other, but I just don't see the world where either one of these guys is the guy. I think that they're a guy who can have the guy games. And so it really makes it hard for me to call either, or really, in my honest opinion, the entire backfield a breakout, just because I think with Dak's health, with the addition of George Pickens, they're going to want to throw the ball. And that's why they haven't paid as much mind to the running back room as they honestly probably should have. It's just the Cowboys' offensive specialty. They don't invest in their lowest part of production. They did it with years with the receiving room behind CD. Now they went and got a receiver and just started to disregard the running backs. They bring in Javonte Williams on a super cheap deal. They drafted Jaden Blue, I want to say like 4th or 5th round. Like, he didn't have insane draft capital either. I just don't see the breakout. And there might be some Houston bias in that, but also
who asked you?
This is how I see it.
No, I get it though. It's a stretch. It can be a stretch to some people, so I get it. I understand that completely. But yeah, that is actually going to finish this up for the night, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed some of those breakouts. Hopefully you guys can use that to your advantage, or at least if you're in your Scott Fishbowl, you're hearing about what's going on in round 2 at least. Something is for someone here, so some information will get to you guys. So Bob, my friend, thank you for coming on. You were a fantastic guest as always. Love your analysis on everything. If there's anything you'd like to say or mention again, I will give you the floor, my friend.
Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. You heard me talk about it. Yes. That's the book. It's on Amazon.com. Just type in Fantasy Football Consistency. Guarantee you it's the only thing that's going to pop up. So check that out. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you'll get it in 2 days, which is really cool. So get that now. Scott Fishbowl drafts. Hey, consistency matters, even in Scott Fishbowl. So make sure you get that. You still have to start players. So unlike, most that are best ball, these you have to put in starters. So you have to kind of mix and match. So that consistency model can certainly help guide you through the season as well. And of course, as we spoke earlier, check out all of us. We'll all be there at the Fantasy Football Expo, August 8th through the 10th, 2025, Canton, Ohio. Hopefully you're close enough to drive. If you can't, believe it or not, there are quite a number of direct flights into Akron Canton Airport, especially Southern. So Georgia's, Florida's, down that area. Vegas has a direct flight. I know some of the, like New York, Philadelphia, Washington, some of those. But heck, from there you can drive. It's 6 hours. It's not that bad. So definitely come over, check it out. Get your tickets now before the price goes way up. Make sure you grab your hotel rooms before they go. Those go fast as well. So come and hang with us. TheFantasyFootball.com is the spot to get the tickets. Follow me on Twitter at Bob_Lung. And of course, you can follow the Expo on all the media channels, all the social channels at the FF Expo. So Steve, Tyler, thank you so much. Always honored and pleasure to be joining you guys on the show, and look forward to being on again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate it. Coach Tyler, anything you want to say before we get going?
Yeah, like I just said, go check out dynastynerds.com. They offer, the Dynasty Film Room. I'm a big film guy. Love watching the players, obviously have all the box stats and everything. But I like watching the guys, seeing who I feel is really making the moves. And that works even up to this point now, right? I'm already prepping for my 2026 rookies that we're talking about in a little while. But go check out Dynasty Nerds, Dynasty GM, as you're making your trades, prepping for the beginning of your Dynasty seasons, as I've been making my trades, prepping for the beginning of my Dynasty seasons. Been using that Dynasty GM, making sure I'm not getting screwed on any of those values. But go check out dynastynerds.com. They have a ton to offer, lots of great articles, podcasts, everything. Use code COACH when you get over there. Let them know that we sent you. And thank y'all for checking us out.
Absolutely. And don't forget, all the guys from Dynasty Nerds will be at the Expo. Rich Dotson and the Dynasty Nerds team is once again sponsoring the Dynasty panel on stage. So if you're a fan of Dynasty Nerds, and we all are, trust me, you've got to come and check out that one for sure. They will all be there, Rich Dotson and all the gang. So
they do roll deep in the Dynasty Nerds team, that's for sure. I hear it all the time. But we thank you guys all for listening, whether you're listening live on our YouTube channel at the Fantasy Coaches, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate it, guys. As always, here we're just We're just here to help you guys win some championships, whether it's, obviously Dynasty or, Scott Fishbowl, or, getting into the 2025 redraft season here. We're going to help you guys get prepped up for these drafts so you guys can start winning championships. So we thank you guys all for listening. We'll be back next Monday for a new episode. But until then, guys, thanks for listening. and have a great one.
Back to back is not far